absent. And the child gets this energy. Children get this energy very fast. And whatever you expect the child to behave, they will behave 100% like that. Because you expected the child to behave bad, and you have shown it in your body language and in the way you looked at the child. Remember, all our children get us by the tone. I remember talking to the little fellow and he said, Auntie, I know when my mother is angry. I don't know, for whatever reason, they give him a long name, Krishnamurti. But when he's angry, they will call him as entire name. Mother will call out. But when she is happy, she will call him Kittu and, Chinna and all that. He says, I know, some work has to be done, I have to go to the neighboring shop and get something, then I become Kittu. But when she's upset, my entire name is called. Krishnamurti, where are you? So they know, as Srilija, I'm in trouble now. Children are so very perceptive. Why do we underrate them so much? So therefore, this observation has to be done without even that iota of judgment. The minute you judge a child or you arrive at a conclusion, somehow children get that. They just relate to children. And therefore, that is the most difficult task for all of us, to observe without arriving at a conclusion. So that is what is called as subjective and objective observation. There's always so much of talk about it. What is objective, what is subjective? Can we observe the child objectively, not subjective? Anyone can explain this? Objective and subjective. There are two ways to observe. One is objectively, one is subjectively. I take a lot of time on this. It's my favorite topic. So, but what is this objective and subjective observation?
Subjective could be having your own conclusions or having your own thoughts before observing.
We all have thoughts. We can't suppress it. It will come. The thoughts are a part of us. We are thoughts. That will pop up. Like Jack in the Box keeps popping up all the time. You can't avoid it. It's there.
Objectively, maybe something where you are trying to help or trying to see the better for the child from his point of view, more than what you feel is right.
Okay, so in order to help us when we are actually observing, which we will do go for the second round of observation, try it. Try to observe a child. As you are observing the child, be aware of your thoughts. That's all.
Yeah, don't bring in your thoughts there.
Exactly. Just leave it there. It is there. Leave it. It is there. I know it is there. So and don't try to suppress it or say, why did I think like that? That all comes later. Analysis comes much later. When you sit with a good friend or a colleague or someone you can trust, then you can open your heart and say, why did I think like that about the child? Why did that thought pass through me? That comes much later. At that point of time, you are aware. I have this thought in my head. So that is what is, you have to make observation practical, right? Otherwise, how can it become feasible for us? We are not automatically. So we have to go through a process of, a lot of trouble we have to take. You have to understand what is observation. Because serving is to help the child. Observing is to know how to do that, offer that help. It's only when you observe you can serve better. Otherwise, you'll end up giving, a dish to a person who doesn't like it. Remember, when we want water, when we are thirsty, we need water, not food. So observing is to know how to help. How to offer that help, we will know only when we observe. So can we do it objectively and not subjectively? Subjective means where I become important, where I am the most important person here. So I am looking at the child through my understanding of the child or my understanding of the world. And that is where the thoughts will seep in all the time. So if you look at it literally like a grammar, subject and object, which you will do in language. What is a subject in a sentence?
The noun.
The person who is doing the action. So when you're subjective in an observation, you are only looking at another person through your understanding of the situation, which I think is very unfair. So most unfair, especially with children, who are themselves don't know why they do certain things or react in a certain way. So in a sentence which is object,
the person who's doing it.
No, subject is the person who's doing it.
Okay.
Object, I eat an apple. Boom, the action is done. The object on which the action is done, right?
Yeah.
So when you say objective observation, can we just be there as spectators and observe the child factually? Because now the attention is on the child's work, not attention, you're not looking at the child through your understanding of the child. You're just looking at the child as they unfold or they open up and show you what they are doing. So very interesting example of this, from a student, she said, ma'am, very interesting thing happening in my class. When we offered the long rods to the child, he is still not able to arrange it in the grading order on the mat. He has difficulties. So she says, thankfully, I remembered this observation and I just sat back. I said, I won't interfere. Because the child is not asking for help. He is doing it haphazardly and finishing it. But she says the most interesting thing is, when the child is placing it back on the shelf, he places it in order. She says that is so intriguing, so interesting. On the mat, he is not able to do it. But when he is placing it back, he places it properly. So she said we all decided to wait because we didn't have an answer for this. And then over the period of a week or so, the child started grading it properly on the mat. So this is a beautiful example of sensitivity to order. I remember the order on the shelf. I'm not conscious of it. I'm not conscious of the linear dimension. That consciousness became clear only when the child did the grading on the mat. So beautiful, unfolding that happened. And I said, so thankful you waited for it to happen, the truth to unfold. So that is your objective observation. You have to have a lot of patience and look at the work through the child's eyes rather than looking at through my expectations, my anticipation of the child, my judgment of the child. If I start looking at it, then I am only seeing what I want to see. I'm not seeing what is there, what is actually the fact that is unfolding in front of my eyes.
Do we have the ability to do this kind of observation nowadays, ma'am?
Say it again, please.
Do we have the liberty to do this kind of an observation on child nowadays? Because I think we're all hurried up to just do whatever we want to do.
See, we have to start somewhere, right? We are not born with the ability because we are conditioned to make past judgments. We are conditioned like that. So therefore, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a process. Like I said, do it as an experiment. Go sit in a coffee shop and observe. Catch yourself having all those thoughts. And then, because observation is not fragmented. It's a quality of life that you have to carry with you throughout your life, wherever you are, whether you are sitting in the bus. So I used to do this when I used to travel by bus to JP Nagar, the course. I used to go from Jayanagar to JP Nagar those days. I would catch a bus on purpose. And then I would sit and just observe all the young people in the bus. Of course, most of them are on their mobile. But the way they're talking on the mobile, whether they're talking to their boyfriend or they're talking to their parents, instantly. Because the way their expression, the body language changes. But I did it as an experiment. I'm not saying I've, achieved it. But it's a process. So the only way, what even Sudhaji said, just be aware of your thoughts. That's a good place to start. Maybe you should write down your thoughts. Okay, I thought like this. Maybe with the second round of observation, carry your book. Don't write about the child. Write about what are the thoughts that went through you when you are observing. And most of the 90% of the time, we are judging the people in front of us without knowing who they are, what is their background, and what is the basis of judgment? My perception. I feel I have a better way to handle the situation than the person actually handling it. So it is an exercise. It just can't happen overnight. And Dr. Montessori she talks about scientific observation, where you see the unfolding, the opening up of the child's intelligence, how they address the situation, how they look at the situation in front of them, how they respond to it, how they reacting to it. So it's a whole process that happens with the children, right? So therefore, she said we have to do it objectively and not subjectively. See, these are all words that help us in our journey in what is called as observation. You will have thoughts, all of us will have, I'm not saying we can completely, put it aside. We will pass judgment, but can we be aware of that we are passing a judgment or we are arriving at conclusions? And then can we keep that possibility open where the child will show another side of his nature, what we call as the true nature of the child. That's why Dr. Montessori asks a very pertinent question. She says, if this true nature is there, which the child knew it and I was able to witness it, why isn't it common then? And the famous statement that she made was, what is common is not true and what is true is not common. It's a very beautiful statement. So when you have seen a true nature, then why isn't it common? What is there in the conditions that doesn't allow the child to reveal his true nature all the time? What is coming? What is the hurdle over there? So it's a very beautiful statement to remember. What is true is not common, and what is common is not true, which reflects on the adult society rather than the child's nature. The child is only responding or reacting to whatever you place in front of the child. Right? So therefore the next requirement for observation is to observe the child in as natural an environment as possible. Of course, we don't have a natural environment. We all have supernatural environments. Human beings don't have a natural environment. So, but then as close, maybe the comfort of the home. Like I said, there are some special educators who actually go to, a person's home and child's home and observe the child at home, because that is the closest to comfort. Because even if you talk about the Montessori environment, it's still a supernatural. I mean, which environment will have material exclusively for children? Children share their environment with others. So we have to find whichever is closest. So for me, if you ask me which is the closest to a natural environment, I would say the outer part of the environment where they play. So that is where I've made most of my discoveries about the child. So if they say, please come and observe my child, or can you give us some inputs? I usually say, can we go outside? Can we go for a walk? Can the child play outside? I'll observe them there. That is the closest we come to a natural environment. Because whatever is in the living room is still a controlled. It's a very sacred place, and children know that they associate that feeling with that environment. But outside is a different cup of tea. So that is your challenge. You have to find your comfort zone where you feel that the child is natural, or the child's it's very natural to the child, and therefore the child will reveal himself. The other thing is that the person who is being observed, that the child, should not become conscious or observing. You can't keep staring at that child. We've had information where students come back and say, ma'am, I went for this observation, the child came in and has told me, I know what you're doing, you're writing about us. So don't make it so obvious. Don't write in front of children. So look at the facts and come back home immediately and write. Immediately. So when you go for an observation, immediately. So if you're working in an environment, the same evening write. As soon as the children go home, write your observation about the children. So there are various ways of keeping records, but if you want to write it as anecdotal, anecdotal means something extraordinary that happened with the child. So keep a diary open with all their names and write it immediately, otherwise we forget. Then we write out of imagination. Because our mind doesn't have that much of power to see whatever unfold completely. So therefore, it's very important that the child does not become conscious about the fact that she's being observed. We have to do it very unobtrusively, without even the child realizing that she's being observed. For which Dr. Montessori says, please keep observation continuous. You can't say I will observe only, after 12 o'clock in the afternoon, after the exact time. You have to make it a habit. All the time you're around children, you observe them. But sometimes maybe you do deliberate observation. You go sit on a chair and say, I'm going to observe the entire community. I presented something to all the children, collective presentation. Let me see how much they are able to imbibe a bit of understanding. So you can't give yourself that time of sitting in a corner and observing. That can be done. But make it a habit. Observe continuously. As long as the child is with you, you observe the child. Wherever you get the opportunity, whenever you get the opportunity, you do it. So it's continuous. And the other thing is very important, do not have a personal stake. There should not be any kind of personal stake in your observation. That is a very, some kind of individual reason you have to observe. That cannot be there. So there is no personal stake in your observation. So an example of a personal stake is that maybe I'm working in an environment and I have made up this conclusion about the child, and I go to the coordinator and say, you know what, the child doesn't work at all with language, and she doesn't take any presentation in some area. So I've made a statement like this, and then the coordinator says, okay, you keep observing the child for a few more days. What I will do, I want to prove my statement, right? That is very human. I've already told my authority that this is who the child is. So therefore, after that, whatever I observe will be to just add proof to whatever I have told the coordinator or the parent or administration, whoever, or even to myself. I have made a conclusion, I want to prove it right. That's a very human characteristic. Especially under, when we work with children, we feel a sense of authority. So that becomes a personal stake. But if you are going to observe the child with that kind of thought in mind, you will never see the truth. Why are we observing? We are observing not to prove a point. We are observing to find out what are the strengths of the child. How can I help the child to learn better or work to his potential? So when the minute there is a personal stake, I am observing with some reason to prove a reason, then the entire thing falls flat. It's not observation. I'm looking for evidence like a detective, like I said earlier. There's a crime that happened, I'm going to find out. I already made up my mind that this person is a criminal. So I will take all efforts to prove that. I will make sure that I get evidence to prove that fact. That doesn't help the child. So we have to be there to see the unfolding, the movement. What is the improvement? What kind of change has happened in the child? So the child, yesterday didn't know how to even, hold, let us say, a cloth in his hand. And today he's able to hold something which is heavy. That's a movement that has happened. So no personal stake. If there's a personal stake, that is not observation. That is only to prove a point. I'm endorsing something that I have shared with someone. So that becomes difficult. And therefore she says observation is effective only if it is done continuously. It is done objectively, without arriving at any conclusion. You have to do it for a longer period of time, as long as possible, and in an environment that is as natural as possible to the person being observed or the child being observed. Okay? And therefore she uses a very beautiful word. She says, can we observe innocently? Innocently means without any conclusion, without any judgment, without any wanting to prove a point. Can we observe very innocently without labeling the child, without arriving at any kind of conclusion or assumption? Can we have a mind, so rather than saying, I'm going to mold the child, can we have a mind that's very pliable, which is ready to accept whatever you see, the truth? And that is why we are observing, to see the truth. And basically when we observe, we look for the strengths rather than the weaknesses. Weaknesses are very evident, you will get to know them within no time. But strengths can get hidden by the weaknesses. I don't know why in this world, negative is more attractive than the positive. I don't know why mind, I think some people say it is anthropology. Because you are looking for danger, for survival. So you're looking at negative things in the environment because you want to survive. And somewhere, even in civilization, it's become a part of our lives, that the negative has more attraction over the positive. So for whatever reason. So therefore be very careful of this. Because you will tend to know the negative more than the positive. And negative is a weakness which comes in the way of the child's working to his potential. But we can't do anything with weakness, right? What can you do with it? But can you work on the strength? Yes, of course. You can use the strength to overcome the weakness. So a very beautiful example, like the other day someone said, ma'am, the child is not very good at arithmetic, numbers. So I use language to teach her numbers. You can do the other way around also. You can use numbers to teach language. You can teach anything in this world. There's nothing that is, you can say, you can never say I cannot teach. Anything can be taught to children. But is the child ready for it is a question. So to know whether the child is ready for what we are going to offer the child, we have to observe the child. Otherwise we'll be talking, children will be just giving you a blank stare or they'll be sleeping. How many of us have slept in the class with our eyes open? So I think we all gone through it as students. I think we learned. Some of us are very, very good. Some of my friends are very good. I didn't learn it somehow. But they say, your classes are there, it will reflect, it will not show whether you are, sleeping or awake. But many of us start in the class with our eyes open but sleeping. Completely, not even aware what the teacher is saying. So unless the student is ready, what will the teacher do? And the very beautiful thing, the student chooses the teacher. It's not the other way around. You choose who you want to learn from. And that is the truth of life. You might come across someone only for 5 minutes. You might learn more from them than from, someone you have known for 50 years. That is the truth of life. And that is where even psychologists will say that is the base of helping, people or children through observation. Observation is so important. But again, remember, we have this deep antipathy about the child. I'll talk about it again later when we talk about the unique features of the method. But we have to realize, we have to know, we have to be aware that that is empathy. Like a feeling, I know what you're going through. That is empathy. I can't. It's all nonsense when we say I can put myself into your shoes. We never do that. We can never understand what the other person is going through. But I can be empathetic. I know you're going through something. And if you say, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Or if you say, sit beside me quietly, okay, fine, that is also fine. If I want to help you. So we understand empathy to a certain extent. But antipathy is something we want to cover up. None of us will say, I'm feeling antipathetic, especially to children. But Dr. Montessori says, psychologically proven, that we have this deep feeling of, grouse towards children. That they are more entitled. What I didn't have when I was young, my child is having it. It can be our own children. How many times have you overheard parents saying, I didn't have all this when I was young, you have it. I studied under the street light. So that is not a comparison. Again, the world has changed. We have more facilities now. So what do you want your child to study under street light, is it? I don't understand this kind of, mentality where parents talk like this. That I went through this in my childhood. And that is not the right time to talk when you're having a fight with your teenager. Saying that I suffered all this, I went through this, in spite of that I studied. So what are you saying to your child? You're saying that, you're getting more than what you deserve? Is that the way to, encourage our children to, do better in their life? It's not that. I remember this, whenever I say this, I remember the story. So the mother serves food to a child and the child doesn't want to eat all of it. And she says, the story of someone, a famine in Ethiopia. So the child is, they're starving there, they don't have enough food, you have to eat up all your food, you cannot, waste it and all that. So the child eats all her food and then she looks at her mother and she asks a question, so now will that child in Ethiopia get food now? She says, because you told me if I eat up all the food on my plate, that person in Ethiopia, is starving. What kind of comparison is that? So the child's question was very relevant. So I've eaten my food now. Will that child in Ethiopia get a food? She will not. So then the story of starvation, someone starving, is about how to help that child. It's not about you eating up what is on your plate. So we give all kinds of examples which are not at all relevant to our children. And then we say, we are passing on values to our children. And we do this kind of jumbled up parenting because of the very deep antipathy that we have. The mother actually said, when we're talking about, being gentle with our children, she said, Ma'am, what's wrong with me? I said, nothing is wrong, you're a wonderful person. She said, when I was young, I got beaten up fast by my mother. But in spite of that, I didn't, carry that grounds or that feeling of, someone beating me up or, getting punished. And I'm a wonderful person now. So what is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong. So why shouldn't I do the same thing to my child? Because if this is if I am the consequence of, bad parenting, there is nothing wrong with me. Why shouldn't I do the same thing for my child? It's a relevant question, but the problem is, if I ask you to go back to your childhood and think, were you happy when someone did that to you? No, you're not happy. So which means the childhood is not, a happy childhood. The childhood, see, we can't say in terms of in the future I will be like this, or do whatever you want with me. Life is what you live now. Life is what is going to now. So if I'm having bitter medicine, I'm feeling the bitterness now. That is what is childhood. So therefore, that antipathy, whether we accept it or not, Dr. Montessori says it is there deep within us.
Ma'am, so how do we address these things, ma'am? Like you said, generally in any household this happens. Don't eat food. There are a lot of people who doesn't have food and all. So how do we say that importance of food?
So which means that, like many people do this on the child's birthday, instead of throwing that, expensive birthday party, they visit maybe an orphanage or an old age home and they share the food with them. Whatever you can do, you do that much, right? Wherever you are, which makes some sense to the child. Otherwise, talking like this, if you eat your food, someone is starving in Ethiopia, so how does that connect to the child? The child had a very good question. She said, will she get food now? I've eaten up all the food on my plate.
That's true, but see, generally, even here we say, we'll prepare some food, we'll give to poor people, and we sometimes donate food. So that is also, so if that will create an awareness, like we can donate food, but how will the child really understand I shouldn't waste that food?
I shouldn't waste it. So ask the child to serve herself. That is the only solution to it. There's no solution. But the problem is we want to serve children, no? You have to eat 2 portions of this.
Okay.
That is where the problem starts.
Correct.
That is where the problem starts.
Decide what to do.
Yeah, we will decide how much a child will eat. And in our country, it's an obsession. We have taken it to the obsessive level.
So,
where
whatever you feel like you're very bad. I feel like I'm very bad.
No, can we say, okay, you take a little, you like it, and we'll serve some more. So, you can take it bits and portions at a time. Now, why do we want to fill up the child's plate? See, if someone filled up my plate, you feel that you will be able to eat it. The plate is filled with food. It puts you off immediately. So, let us say, even if you want your child, you would wish your child to eat 2 chapatis, or serve them one. And then say, finish it. Let us say, maybe, okay, you don't want to eat one, we eat at least half of it. That way we are not wasting food. We are not throwing it in the bin. But then, we are very good at justifying whatever we do. That is the end of the day. So we say that, there's one person who says, this entire fixation of not wasting food we are taking it beyond. Because food is not only to be eaten by human beings, it has to be eaten by animals also. And if you throw food away, the ants will eat it. So we are very good at justifying wherever we are. We are very good. We have learned that to justify. But the question is, are we living in the moment is a question. That's all. Are we addressing the situation, or we are talking to the child from what we want the child to do? So whatever we do, we are justifying. Whatever we do, we will justify it.
So whatever the parent does, the child is not happy.
No, we are not happy. It's not the child. We are not happy with whatever our children do. We are comparing the child constantly. See, all of us have gone through. I'm not saying, I have not gone through it. I was the first time, though even though my son went to Valley, the first time he did a test in 8th standard, he came to me back with the paper. And then I looked at the result, and I knew I'm doing it wrong, but I asked him. I said, who got the most marks? It just popped out of my mouth.
Because we have been keep on asking the same question. We have been asked the same question by our parent. So that is when it could have come out.
It's not about the question, no, it is about the conditioning. So I want to find out, so it's a very intuitive thing. I know my child has got, let us say, maybe 5 out of 10. And if I know that a child has got 8 out of 10, which means my child has not done very well. I'm not looking at the child's performance. I'm looking at the child's performance in relation to someone else performing in the class.
Okay.
How is your GDP calculated? How is your marks in college calculated if you're doing professional courses? It's always based on the best student. Your average is based on the best student in the class. Your grades are based on that, and that is why I've overheard actually youngsters talking to each other and telling the child who's bright, the youngster who's bright, don't do very well in tomorrow's test because I have not learned. I've not studied. Because the marks that this person will get is based on the average of the highest score. The average is based on that. All of you have done engineering know it. So comparison is the greatest sin that we can do. And we do it. Knowingly we do it. We know that the oak tree cannot have bananas. But we will compare with the banana. I mean, this is the best example I've heard. A oak tree can never become a banana tree. A banana plant cannot become an oak. But we will compare. Each one has its unique qualities. We will not look at that.
Ma'am,
We will always compare. Sorry?
is it possible for parents to observe a child objectively?
I remember the first class itself, I made a statement that I don't know how much I have achieved as a parent. But as a teacher, I'm moved forward. I'm quite, I'm at least come to a state where I can say, I'm proud of where I've reached. But as a parent, I don't. Because we as parents are very ambitious for our children.
Yeah, we want everything to be the best, and we want our child to be the best. In the class. Whatever she does or he does, our child should be the best in the class. That is what we feel.
That's a home is always like. That is the problem that all of us face.
But it's possible right now, huh? You can objectively observe your child.
Sorry, say it again.
You can objectively observe your child. It is possible,
It is
right?
possible. It is not impossible. But then our ambition comes in the way. Our ambition is so strong. It's like, emotionally the best for my child. And then children are so different, right? They are not like us. There was a research done where, I'm sure you've seen that video. If you have not, they first ask every child, about 10 children, they ask, what do you like, like among your friends, which mother would you rate best? So the child says, always some other mother, not her mother. He says, I like that girl's mother or my friend's mother. Why? Because she allows her to say overnight. Some reason they give. Or she's very cool about the way she dresses. All that happens. So one round of interview, every child always talks better about some other mother, not her own mother. The next round of questioning is they ask every child, so would you be fine with changing your mother? Shall we change because you're not happy with your mother, right? Shall we change? Every child, without an exception, said no.
No.
It's okay, whoever she is, she's still my mother, I'm fine with her. Our children have accepted us. We have not. We have not accepted our children. Either we overindulge or we deprive them. Or we keep taunting them all the time. I didn't have this, I didn't have that yet, look at what I have, reach how I am. And most of us are late bloomers, that also we know. But we want our children by 20 to know what they do, what they want to do. And we didn't realize till we were 30, 35 what we actually want to do in our lives. But by 18 they should know what they have to do. These are all things that are very, very common and we have to accept it. And therefore Dr. Montessori says, whatever, even if you deny it, there is this deep antipathy within us. And it is more towards our own children than other. We are actually more lenient and gentle towards other children. We will give all kind of wonders and, to our neighbor. Don't scold your child, he's got less marks in SSLC. Our own child gets it, oh my God, there's Kurukshetra at home. So this child told, she got 98% in some test, she was in the bus. So she said, Auntie, after a lot of trouble, I've reached 98%. I said, go enjoy today, have a nice day. Next day she comes, she's sitting with a long face on the bus. I said, what happened? Auntie, you won't believe it. We never celebrated that 98. Whole evening, my mother tried to find out where did that 2 marks go. We spent the whole evening trying to find out in the paper what happened to that 2 marks. Because if the 2 marks were there, I should have got 100. She got 98. They never saw a movement. She started somewhere at 50%. And the last 2 years, she's trying to be wherever she was. That was not at all taken into consideration. The 2 marks where it did disappear, and the entire evening went in postmortem of the question paper and the answer sheet. So therefore she says accept it. Because why are we like that? Because we are very authoritative. Authority is a problem. We feel as soon as we have children, we become authority over there. We are very uncompromising. We don't want to compromise. We have set a standard when we want all our children to reach that. How many of us are willing to give a year break to our child? Even kindergarten they want. This is already, he's born in October, he's lost 6 months in the kindergarten. What can I do? Can I put him, homeschool him and put him directly to first standard? They not even want the child to have one extra year of kindergarten or in the preschool. Why 1 year is wasted? You have your entire lifetime, 1 year, what, nothing, hardly anything. You learn. So this is the background around which, against which we are going to observe the child. Whether our own children or someone else's child, we are going to observe the child. These are the requirements which we have put together, and this is a reality of the situation. We have this strong feeling, subconscious. We will deny it, but it is there in the subconscious. So therefore, we talk about why observation can be difficult a little later. So we have time to just go through the next bit of it, which is called as notes of originality. So what are the notes of originality when it comes to Dr. Montessori's psychology, or as discovered by Dr. Montessori? The first thing is, she says, I don't even want to refer to it as Montessori psychology. So it's called the notes of originality. And the first note is that Dr. Montessori says, please don't even mention it as Montessori psychology or child psychology. Because the minute we say child, we have a lot of images of the child. There is that word itself evokes so many emotions in us. And many of the emotions are not good for children. So she said, please don't refer to the entire psychology or what she discovered as Montessori or as child psychology. Refer to it, she says, as developmental psychology. So that is the first originality. She says, please refer to it as developmental, because the minute you mention term child, so who is this child? So what is a cutoff mark of being a child? Anyone? Cutoff age should be there, no? Where we say, oh, after this you are not a child anymore.
There is no cutoff.
Well, that is, see, again you are talking about words like childlike and childish and all that.
They're not childlike.
12 years, I think. 12, 13, they've gone up to 18 and even 25 now. They say, after the child reaches school, college, they might need help. But let us say, as per legal terms, 18 is a cutoff. When 18 you can drive a car. But 13 they become teen. So we say that's a transit time when they move towards adult. Up to 12 we ideally say it can be their pre-teens, and yeah. Now pre-teens start early also. At 6 only they're pre-teens now. 6 years only they behave like pre-teens. And then by around 8 or 10 they're already teenagers. So much of exposure in the world. And I have known so many children who already reach maturity. They have the menarche, they have the first periods by 8 years. The child is not even mature in the mind, but she's already mature in the body. And blame it all on our kind of food we eat. Everything is out of a packet. So many pesticides, hormones, enzymes. Milk has so many enzymes in it that cause obesity, that causes, early maturity level physically. So the child is just eating. Just baby, out of the cradle, and already she has to handle the 3 days of periods. So heartbreaking. Earlier it was around 16. Then it became 12. Then it became 10. Now it is 8. I know many children are mature at 8. The exposure that they are receiving. So it's very difficult to have a number in our mind when we say child. But let us arrive at, let us say 18. So that is a confusion. Whom we can call a child? What age can we determine childhood ends and adulthood starts? And then we call all children between the ages of 16 to upwards to 25 as young adults. You have a different name for them now. And nowadays you have millennials, Generation X, all that has come up, because we can brand them, label them based on it. So there is a confusion whom we call a child, but let us have so that is one of the reasons why she said we will not call it as child psychology, we call it as developmental psychology. And when we look at it, we realize development never stops. Aging is also development. There's some movement all the time. So therefore she said we refer to psychology as developmental psychology. Moreover, when you don't say child, all these prejudices that spring up in our mind when we say a child, that comes in the way of our understanding the child better. So let us not use the word child. One is the cutoff date the number is very difficult to determine. The other is the prejudices that come to the surface. The minute we say child psychology, all that we associate with the child. And the other thing she says why we prefer to call it as developmental, the reason is though development happens throughout our lives, the most intense, the period where it is,